Welcome back. 1911s and 2011s are not drop safe, right? We've all seen the Grand Thumb video. Well, it was actually well known long before that video by most people that understand how different types of firearms operate. I want to talk about Staccato for a minute. I love Staccato's products. I like what they do as a company. I've had the opportunity to shoot the Staccato XC extensively. I've shot a Staccato P. I've shot multiple Staccatos, and I've also shot a lot of other Series 70 1911s and double stack or 2011s. And the drop safe issue has never been an issue to me. Now, this seems like it became a big issue to a lot of people. I hate to say it, but since that Grand Thumb video came out. Before that, I didn't really hear a whole lot of people talking about it, and I don't think it's nearly as big of an issue as people make it out to be. And what makes a 1911 not drop safe is also what makes it so good. The reason I'm making this video is because, as you guys have probably seen, lots of SHOT Show coverage lately. Well, one of the big things that I was interested in that was coming out around the time that all the new guns come out every year is the new Staccato XD line. And there's a lot of really good things about it. For one, it takes Glock magazines. Now, personally, I don't really have a problem with 2011 magazines. I kind of like them. But they are also designed around the 45 ACP cartridge, and they've just been modified to work for 9mm, which is part of the reason that 2011s have such big, thick grips compared to most 9mm handguns. You know, this is a 9mm, and this is a 9mm. The grips are vastly different, and the biggest reason for that is the 2011 magazines. Glock magazines are also very reliable. They're known for reliability, and they work extremely well. But the Stealth Arms Platypus came out, and it takes Glock 17 magazines. And a lot of people really like that gun. You know, for many, many years, Staccato seemed to be the entry point into getting a 2011. Well, and then the Springfield Prodigy came out, and then the Stealth Arms Platypus, and now we've got guns like this EAA 2311, and there are a lot more, I would say, budget offerings in the 2011 space. Well, the Stealth Arms Platypus became very popular, and a big reason is because it took Glock magazines. People like that. Now, pros and cons, right? So one of the wonderful things, in my opinion, about the 1911 is the grip angle. The 2011 shares that same grip angle. Now, when you use a Glock magazine, Glocks have a grip angle that angles more back. I personally like the more straight up and down grip angle of the 1911-2011. Now, the Staccato XD line, I know Staccato is saying that they put all these ideas that people wanted into their new pistol design. And I do believe that is very true. But I also think that the fact of using a Glock magazine was possibly in some part in response to the Stealth Arms Platypus and the popularity that it got. So that's a big part of their new design. The other big part, besides it being completely ambidextrous, there's a lot of things about the Staccato XD the Staccato HD, excuse me. I've got Staccato XC on my mind. The HD line that look very promising. But it is a Series 80 gun. Now, what does that mean? So all of these right here, this is a Series 70 1911. This is based on the Series 70. This is based on the Series 70. A Series 70 is a single action gun that is not drop safe. Why is it not drop safe? Well, because there is no firing pin block in the upper here. It is a free-floating firing pin, although not totally free-floating. There is a spring that holds it back, but what makes it not drop safe is, without the firing pin block, If it is dropped from enough of a height onto the muzzle, the inertia of the firing pin can set off a primer and send a round without you pulling the trigger. Now, as long as your safety is on and the grip safety is not depressed, the trigger can't be pulled from dropping it. You don't have to worry about that. It is only not drop safe, specifically dropped on the muzzle so that that inertia makes the firing pin hit the back of the primer. Now, while the Staccato HD line was in response to a perceived safety issue with the 2011 design, what's response to an actual safety issue is this video's sponsor, which is Aura. Now, I've been using Aura for a long time now. We've talked about it on the majority of the YouTube videos that Sawtooth Tactical has put out in the last year, and that's for good reason. They have been the main sponsor of the channel, and they protect you online. They protect me online. And so that's why I promote them, because they've actually helped me out quite a bit. So they go online and they find data brokers that have your information. And I promise you, if you don't have a service like Aura, data brokers do have your information. And they're selling it. And that's why you get scam calls, and that's why you get spam. And Aura goes on, they submit opt-out requests on your behalf, and you don't get spam anymore, and you don't get scam calls anymore. It's kind of a sweet deal. And it's only $12 a month. And for that $12 a month, you get a lot more than just that. You know, you get scam call protection, you get spam protection, you get data broker removal, but you also get home title monitoring. You also get antivirus software and password management. You get all this stuff. It's all packaged together. It's very affordable, but if you use my link, the first link in the description, aura.com/sawtoothtactical, you get to try it out for 2 weeks, 14 days, absolutely free, and see if you think that it is worth continuing with or not. Might as well try it, right? 100% free for 14 days, 2 weeks with my link. After that, if you decide to stick with it, it's only $12 a month. So try that first link in the description, aura.com/sawtoothtactical. Now, while a Series 70, 1911 or 2011 technically is not drop safe if dropped very specifically on the muzzle, that's the same reason that the triggers are so good, which is one of the best things about them. This is a cheaper 2011 and it still has an amazing trigger. This is technically a cheaper 2011 too, although I have put all new parts inside it. But this trigger comes in at 2.4 pounds. That's the take-up. That's the break. Extremely light and crisp. You get that because there's no firing pin block. On a striker-fired gun, what makes the triggers kind of gritty and not as good is as you're pulling through that take-up, there is a bar in here pushing up on the firing pin block. And so that's part of the trigger pull. That is what you're doing when you're prepping the trigger, besides on a Glock pulling the striker back, other things. But because of having to push that out of the way, it kind of makes that take up a little bit gritty and not as nice as something like this. So Staccato redesigned their new line, their HD line, as a Series 80 pistol with a firing pin block. Now, it is wire EDM cut, like all the parts. They tried to make the trigger as good as they possibly could, being a Series 80 gun. But I did not go to SHOT Show. I'm hoping to maybe go next year. We'll see what's in the cards. But I've watched a lot of the SHOT Show coverage, the content that's come out from other YouTube channels, and one of them that I saw that kind of really surprised me. So, Palmetto State Armory. This is actually a PSA gun, the dagger here. So they are possibly putting out a 2011, a double stack 1911 this year. And I think it was Thin Line Defense. He was visiting their booth and he goes over and he feels their gun and it did look very smooth. And he pulls the trigger and he said it's significantly better than Staccato. Now Staccato is known to be a very good gun and it's a very expensive gun. Palmetto State Armory is known as a budget gun company that makes cheap guns. And this guy had just come from the Staccato booth, and he said that the PSA 2011 felt significantly better. Not just that it was on par or close to a Staccato, he said significantly better. So then I started looking into it, and it looked like a lot of people talked about the new Staccato and the trigger and it not being very good. Even though they did their best to make a good Series 80 trigger, and like I said, take this with a grain of salt, I have not handled a Staccato HD yet. I've handled other Staccatos and they have great 1911 triggers. But you can't get around that. So the actual take up on a 1911 or a 2011 isn't really doing anything. You hit that wall and that's the break. If that take up has to push a firing pin block out of the way, it's going to be hard to make that trigger as good as a Series 70 trigger no matter what. And one of the big things that I love about 2011s is the trigger. That's one of the things that most people rave about when it comes to this style of pistol. So is Staccato going backwards? I don't know. So Staccato's whole thing, when they were STI, they made competition race guns. When they changed to Staccato, they specifically changed to make duty guns. And they do not hide that their main customer base that they're going for is law enforcement. Also, prepared citizens, a lot of people just love to have Staccatos. I'd love to have a Staccato. Staccatos are awesome. So the thing is that when people started talking about the drop safe issue, they felt like they had to do something about it. Unfortunately, it makes me not want a Staccato HD because I don't want a 2011 that doesn't have a 2011 trigger. So the trigger is one of the reasons that you can shoot these things so well. Besides the recoil impulse, there's a lot of good things about the 2011 design. But I went out the other day to shoot this, and to zero this optic, I zeroed it offhand, not resting on anything, because I'm so confident in this style of trigger that I could just look at my target, prep the trigger to the wall, and I'm very confident that I can break that shot without pulling it because of the way these triggers work. And so that's one of the reasons that shooting a 2011 makes you feel like a better shooter than shooting something like this does. Because that trigger is just so hard to screw up. And so I think making it a Series 80, this is just my opinion, is a mistake. Now, why is that in my opinion? Drop safe issue. Well, floating firing pin. Not even totally free floating because it has a spring. You know what else has a free floating firing pin? This gun, this gun, this gun, this gun, this gun, this gun, this gun. They've never been an issue for me. This gun, this gun, this gun, free floating firing pins. I've never had an ND, I've never dropped one and had it go off on me. And if it did drop, it literally has to drop just like this for the firing pin to have that inertia to cause a shot to go off that was unwanted. And what happens if that happens? Well, it's aiming straight into the ground, unless you drop it on top of your foot. I can see how, yes, of course, we want our guns to be as safe as possible. But guns are inherently a dangerous thing, and so you do have to treat them with care, and you have to be careful with them to be safe with them. Nobody seems to have an issue with the AR-15 having a free floating firing pin, but for some reason it's a big issue with the 1911, 2011. To me, it's not so much, and I think that it is a trade-off that is worth it to have such a nice trigger. I can have a Glock or an M&P that is totally drop safe, and that's a great thing. And these are the guns that I consider as my duty guns. Now, I'm not law enforcement or military. I'm not on any kind of duty. But these are my very serious guns. The guns that I carry are drop safe. And I'm talking about a SIG here, but it's not a P320. For my 2011s, I want them to be the best shooters that they could be. And a big part of that is the trigger. And if you want that good Series 70 single action trigger, your gun's not going to be drop safe. I'd really like to get my hands on one of these Staccato HDs and see what that trigger really is like, because maybe it's not as bad as people are saying. I'm sure people, probably like I would be, are comparing it to other 2011, even other Staccato triggers, and it's not as good as those. But almost nothing is as good as a 2011 Series 70 trigger. So, you know, the Apex trigger in my M&P, very, very good. Extremely smooth take up, very crisp, very light break. And that does have a firing pin block in it. It is a drop safe pistol, but it's not as good as a 2011 trigger. So maybe the Staccato HD trigger isn't even really all that bad. It's just not as good as the Staccato triggers have traditionally been. I don't know, but I want to know what you guys think. If you have tried a Staccato HD trigger, if you were at SHOT Show, or, you know, because they did just come out right before that, let me know if this is just overblown and they're actually pretty good. Let me know if the drop safe issue is really an issue to you, because to me, it's not much of an issue. But I'm also not carrying a Staccato on duty as, you know, a police officer. So maybe it's more of an issue to someone using it in that capacity. But personally, if I was going to go out and buy a Staccato tomorrow, I don't think I would buy a Staccato HD. I'd probably get a Staccato P or a C2 or an XC, if I could afford an XC. That's why I got a the XC we got at home here. Because I want that 2011 trigger if I'm spending 2011 money. Well, let me know what you guys think. I just thought that this was worth talking about. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. Make sure you subscribed. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.